Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients using digital marketing to your veterinary hospital. My name is Brandon Brashears. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Today, we are talking to a guest. We have Crystal Cuadra-Cutler. She's at the Sociable Pet, and she has really good marketing content. And I was really excited to talk with her. Today we talk about a bunch of social media related marketing topics. We dive into Instagram, TikTok, and a bunch of other topics. So I'm really excited. But we're going to get into more on that in just a second here. Before we begin, just a few things. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if there's anything that you would like me to cover in these podcasts, please let me know. One of the best places to do that would be inside of a Facebook marketing group, the Veterinary Marketing Nerds, which you can join for free. So if you go to facebook.com/groups/the Veterinary Marketing Nerds, you can request to join there. If you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help. And we're going to be getting started here with this podcast episode. So we have an interview again today with Crystal at the Sociable Pet. And her content is really practical. It's cool because she is a marketing manager and is in the trenches actually doing marketing. And so it's not just some hypothetical stuff today. You can get some really good actionable information that's going to help you with your social content and your social media marketing. And I think that now more than ever, things are changing really, really rapidly. I think that ad platforms are changing really rapidly, and that's been my primary focus. So I am liking to bringing in these experts on these different social topics because I think they can provide a lot of value. So the ads side of things, which is definitely my favorite side of things, is one thing, but this is a whole nother beast. And I really enjoyed this episode and this content. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to go follow Crystal on Instagram. Her content is fantastic. And if you have any questions, comments, or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. But without further ado, here's my interview with Crystal Cuadra-Cutler. All right, so on this week's episode, we have Crystal Cuadra-Cutler, and thank you so much, Crystal, for joining us. You're at the Sociable Pet. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us on our podcast today.
Thanks for the invite, and glad I could join.
So, can you give us a little bit of backstory on how you got into the veterinary industry and how you got into specifically marketing in the veterinary industry?
Sure. So I've had a long road in vet med. I started actually in 1999 as a veterinary assistant. I've been a veterinary assistant, client service rep, client service supervisor, and a hospital manager. Started out in private practice, and I've been in corporate practice for almost 20 years now. As far as marketing, I got started with that in the vet med space about 2015 or so. That's when my clinic was starting up a Facebook page. And I already had experience using Facebook Business Manager, etc., from some of my side things I do. So, some of my interests. And so I said, I'm interested in helping out. I felt that it was appropriate. I already had experience both in vet med and also on social media. And that kind of is just where it started. So I was doing the Facebook page for my hospital for a couple of years. And that was even through the transition from CSR supervisor to hospital manager. And then after I was doing it as a hospital manager for a year or two, then my boss, as I'm in a corporate practice, asked if I would help out with my region. And then from there, it's kind of expanded. I'm no longer a hospital manager, but I do now full-time work doing social media with the 17 hospitals in my region, as well as other administrative tasks.
That's really cool. That's amazing. So, so much good experience there, both in private and corporate practice. And I'm sure they're very different. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. So for your current position, and then also just in general for marketing, kind of where do you see the industry in terms of, what are the kind of main things that you think practices should be doing for social right now that are kind of like everybody should be doing this 100%? I'm just kind of interested to gauge kind of what you think and see as necessary, because I think
Sure.
I have some ideas on generally where the state of social media is, and it's kind of like a dumpster fire in some areas.
Yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree there. So at this point, we're beyond the point of everyone should already be on social media at this point. If I think we're beyond those days of, just you can be the neighborhood practice and get by. I mean, COVID has changed things in a lot of ways in terms of social media and the need for it, but I still think that the practitioners should be spending the time on it. In terms of platforms, I think that they should be on Facebook. Facebook, as we know, is almost like another search engine piece to it. So, clients are going to be looking for them on Facebook, and certain demographic of clients specifically are going to be there. And it's well beyond time for clinics to be on Instagram. Instagram's heyday, I think, in some ways is already behind us. And if we haven't even joined at this point, we're already behind the curve. What the clinics really should be, focusing on with social media. It used to be that we really were using it for marketing to try and get new clients, but I feel like almost every practice I talk to, that's not a problem anymore. It's keeping up with the existing clients and to help build out their brands and help recruit for new doctors and new employees. And that's really huge for social media to help, help in all those areas.
100%. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that so many times people overlook that really important aspect of social being that tool for recruitment. And I think most people completely miss that. It's really interesting. I moved recently, and then I got a dog recently. Like the two things everybody did during the pandemic. And the practice that I took my dog to get spayed yesterday, actually, they don't even have a website or a Google My Business listing, but they do have a Facebook page, which is how I found their phone number, because there's only one animal hospital in town. And so it's really interesting. They're definitely, I think, in smaller towns where the demand is higher, just they don't do it because they're just overwhelmed with other things. And I think that's right. A lot of what people are feeling right now is just tremendous amounts of overwhelm. So in your opinion, I mean, you're in it, right? And you're working on things all the time. How do you kind of approach your marketing in terms of, like, obviously it's your job title, and obviously it's what I do for a living too. So, like, I think we're going to be biased in thinking it's, completely essential. Like,
absolutely.
But, how do you think, especially for overwhelmed practices, how should they be approaching their social and their marketing, in terms of, like, thinking, is it essential? We're already so busy. Like, who needs to worry about this right now? We got other things.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I think there's a little bit of a bias because we're into marketing, but from the aspect of when I was a practice manager, social media is super important. That's how I was able to help build our brand for our clinic, which helped in turn to recruit new employees. And that helped with retaining our clients and also building our client base in an area where it was super competitive. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. When you say building a brand, what kind of things do you think are most important when it comes to social for actually building a brand? I think that is, like, just generally tossed around.
Right.
And sometimes people think that means, like, okay, I have to put my color on point and, my color palette and my logo and branded, done. But what do you think branding is, and how do you think veterinary practices should be using social to brand in ways that they probably don't think about?
Well, what I think is, definitely people get hung up on the coloring and what the logo looks like and all those little minute details on that. But it's well beyond that. So it's, when people see your hospital name, what do they think of? What kind of values do they know about you? What do they know based on the interactions that they've had? And what kind of feeling do they get? I mean, I think of other brands, like Starbucks, you can look at that logo and a lot about them without saying anything. And that's really how it's supposed to be with your veterinary hospitals and your brands. And if you've done it right.
Definitely. I think that probably comes from just I can't imagine how many times I've been hit with the Starbucks logo and the repetition of that branding play and consistency. So from a practical standpoint, when you're talking to practices or when you're doing things in branding, what do you think the most important kind of aspects of branding are?
It's consistency, and that's consistency in voice. So having posts and social content that all have a similar feeling, or you're trying to emote a certain feeling about the practice. And of course, like we've mentioned before, the color and aesthetics, that one's huge. And just making sure that's consistent. And additionally, just making sure you're consistent on posting. So it's great, to get, something up now, but what about next week and the week after? You don't want to have gaps. So, for me, one of the big parts of my job is, planning out what content we're going to have when, and scheduling out so there's no gaps, because you can do all this work, but you still have to be consistent in putting that work out to the public so that they see that you're around and you're relevant.
Definitely. I think that's 100% true. I think if you do anything long enough, you'll find an audience who loves it. And, just if you think about any kind of established brand that's been around for a long time, there's the loyal people that just essentially will buy whatever they put out because they've just consistently loved it for so long. And so, even if the product is not the best or it's just been around for a long time, it's definitely a thing that is helpful. So with, creating social posts and social media marketing, what do you think because one of the things that I like recently, you've had a reel that you've posted about having clear calls to action with your social. And I think this kind of goes into planning as well. But, how do you make sure that you're balancing, specific calls to action and, just branding content, awareness content, informational content? Kind of what's your mix and recipe that you like to use?
I think it varies really account to account of where they're at with their hospital. If they're a hospital that's still growing, it's going to be, growing their pages, then it's going to be more calls to action and more calls to engage. If they're a page that's, just kind of going along and not really trying to rock the boat, as many clinics are doing, they're just trying to get by, then there's not as many calls to action. Probably say 4 posts a week. Say maybe half of those are going to have, calls to action, or, only one of 4 call to action, just because, it's tricky. It used to be the calls to action would be book your appointment, or to, find out more information about this, etc. Go to the website to learn more, which it also meant book an appointment. And at this point, many clinics are like, I don't want you to book an appointment for me. We're, 2 months out for appointments. So I think some of that is just changing what the call to action is, and changing the mindset on what the calls should be about.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm finding more calls. I'm doing more calls to action on simple posts, just really to try and get engagement, because I don't want to lose the audience base, because they're just so inundated with other content that if there isn't a call to action and asking them to do something, then maybe we're not going to get the attention on that post, which then leads to algorithm, etc.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And I think too, if you're just trying to maintain and grow your social, so that if the market changes or if things slow down, you have that kind of reserve built in, that you have your audience who will then want to take action. I think doing in-app calls to action where you're just trying to get engagement and social growth is going to just help you, because nobody, for the most part, when you look at other brands and other businesses outside of this space, people are always selling stuff and taking off site and, doing things like that. So if you are doing social that is driving to, commenting or liking and engaging, you're going to get a lot better algorithm growth for sure. So that's a good point too. And a cool idea too, I think, as a good way to build it up right now. But when you're thinking about, especially having done social on, corporate side and on the private side, what do you think has been, because I know that there's a lot of people that try, and this is one of the most common questions that I get. It's kind of different question here, but what is the best way, in your opinion, to get buy-in? Have you had to ever sell buy-in for practice owners, or has it been just always driven from them?
So I've definitely been on the buy-in side, not really on the private clinics, because I have less experience there. But even with the corporate practices, with say the regional management or the individual hospital managers trying to get their buy-in on social, and it can be tough. Especially there's a generational issue with it, I feel sometimes, where, the upper management might be, Gen X or Boomer, and they're just not as interested in social. They don't really see how it leads to anything. They think it's, just posting about, puppies and kittens, and it's not really that it's contributing to your bottom line. And then you have other folks in that space that maybe they're, a little younger, that totally see the reason for it. But then they say, well, I'm too busy. I don't know how I can do it. So definitely a challenge there. And those are all different challenges. And you kind of have to attack them all differently, because you have to try to get to the point of why they hold on to that reasoning that it's not for them. And I think, for the most part, breaking down some of the barriers of what social is and what it can be, and also showing results. I think that's a big one, of showing the results that, hey, I was at this underperforming clinic and was able to grow their client base using marketing, including social media, or I was able to add staff members because of this brand awareness, or I was able to increase revenue on invoices because of this marketing campaign, which included social media for heartworm prevention. So I think showing them that it leads to tangible results really helps in trying to get that buy-in from your upper management, and I would perceive ownership as well.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense. I think too, one of the things you were mentioning is you were saying about calls to action here for products and services that you have at practice. I was actually talking to a friend who's a practice owner yesterday, and she was saying how she's changed her practice so that if people want to come and bring their pets there, they have to apply. And so, because they're so busy, and I said, that's a great idea. And we were talking that, everybody is so busy, but they think that they have to continue to do this insane level of workload. I'm not sure why that is, but if you're creating posts or in content, you could be really focusing in on higher margin services or higher end services, or higher end clients, and there's only 24 hours in the day, so you have to figure out what it is that you want to be attracting into your practice. And if you don't have time for more volume, then the other way to generate more revenue is go for those higher priced products and services. And I think that there's a lot of potential there.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody's so busy. It's like the practice that I went to the other day, they wouldn't take me as a client, but we were able to get in for a space surgery. But the space surgery was $260. And I don't know how much, I was moving from Southern California. I thought it was going to be $1,300 because I don't know how much pricing is. And she said, it's based on weight. And I was like, okay. And she's like, $260. And then I was like, oh, no wonder you're not taking on new clients. You're not, how are you open? It's a brand new practice. I was amazed. It was just beautiful. And they are just charging. I don't know if that's low or what, but to me, it was crazy that somebody who's gone to medical school and is performing complex soft tissue surgery. And I know it just is like mind blowing. So I think there's a lot that you could do to just really drive in, those higher margin products and upgrade the client base. If I know that's probably not something that is kind of nice to say, but like when you're creating social, for example, do you have like in general kind of goals with attracting the right kind of clients and then repelling the wrong ones, like along those lines?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that one of the places that really can make you stand out and potentially get rid of those clients that you don't want are just some of your value statements and about your brand and just your brand values. And so you show off those things that you like about your team. I think I'd be negligent if I didn't mention, stuff with DEI. If you're not, if you're posting about that, maybe that's going to kind of filter out the clients that you don't want for your practice that are not a fit. And so same thing with, your goods and services. If you're showcasing, your high-end stuff, then you're going to be attracting potentially those high-end clients that understand that this is going to be at a premium. And, that said, there's room everywhere within vet med for the different types of practices and the different models, but just make sure that you're marketing appropriately to that client base and using social to drive that. One clinic I think of that I help out with has a very mixed demographic of clients where they have some folks that are fairly affluent, and then they also have some folks that are not so much. And really, you have to figure out in that market which way do you go? Are you targeting the clients that are, want the vaccine clinic experience, or you're targeting the clients that want the, platinum service? So all of that, I think, does tie in with your social and what you're going to put out there for content.
That makes sense. Definitely. Do you think that there is a good strategy around trying to appeal to multiple markets and, each post is for different segments of your audience? Or do you think in general for brand strategy, you should really just focus on like one demographic so that it's consistent? Because I think like having like high-end dental posts and then having like we're having a low-cost vaccine weekend, they're definitely like, conflicting.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that you need to make that choice of what you want to be. Because if you try to market to everybody, you're marketing to nobody, because you're going to turn off, the people who are bargain hunting if you're posting about these expensive dentistries, or, you're going to potentially really just, I think of, some of the affluent clients that I've worked with that, they could afford to pay the full price, but if you're marketing for the lower price, they're going to try and push for that lower price regardless. And you're causing issues at that clinic. I think that you should just make your choice of what you want to be and stick with it and Stay consistent.
That's a good point. I think if you look at any business, like you have generally expectation of what you're going to be getting there based on what it is that how they position themselves. And it's really funny. I was talking to a boarded specialist who does dentistry and doing some ads for them. And it was really funny because the way that they work, they're really high end. They only work on really specialized cases, primarily through referrals. And so they don't have to bridge the gap with price and like availability. And I said to them, okay, we're going to be getting phone calls and you're going to have to explain why you're different. And like, it was just a foreign concept to them that they're going to have to explain why their dentistry service is worth more, because they don't have to like, it was like, oh, we have to take the calls and they're not just going to set an appointment. It's like, no, they don't know. And so I think there's so much just difference in terms of positioning between a general practice who's thinking like, for the most part, we need to get everybody in here and we need to appeal to the low end and the high end and everybody in between. And somebody who's a boarded specialist who's not even like, I don't want phone calls. They just need to book an appointment and it's going to be what it is. So it's just so interesting.
Right. Well, and you, I mean, you're mentioning an example of, specialty versus GP, but I can think of even within GP, I have a practice that I work with that's fear-free. And so that's completely different than a regular hospital. Their approach on what they're posting and how much more informational it is and how many more videos and experiences they want to share, because they want to make sure to let their clients and potential clients know that they are a different experience than what you're getting at a regular practice that doesn't have, fear-free or low stress handling.
Absolutely. That's a good example because it's just so different. And I think people who are not set up for that expectations too would probably be upset, like if you didn't end up seeing the pet because they're so stressed out and worried, and they'd be like, just take it. I just want, to get it done type of a thing. So I think that's a really great example too. Let's switch gears just a little bit, because I think one of the questions that I see so frequently is, when we're talking about social platforms or just in general, like tactics, not necessarily strategies, but like specific tactics. I think that platforms are kind of like a tactic for marketing, right? Where every platform has its strategy that you have behind it, but then the best execution of that strategy is probably a specific platform. And so a lot of questions that I see coming in on my Facebook group and messages that I get frequently are TikTok questions, also Instagram Reels and all these other products that are related to Instagram. Kind of, what do you think about TikTok as far as for veterinary hospitals, and then also for veterinary brands and for personal brands, and where do you see that right now?
So TikTok. So I think you're correct in that assessment, and that each platform is very different in what it brings and what potential client base you have there. TikTok is a fun one because while we saw that more people were going to TikTok last year, I think that it finally actually jumped Facebook in the number of app downloads worldwide. So more people are joining TikTok. That said, it's a little harder to target, like your local marketing with TikTok. So for a hospital that really depends on, your client base within a 5-mile radius, TikTok may not get you where you need to go as far as, generating new clients and new purchases, new sales, etc., because they're not local based. It's, that's something that's, nationwide and worldwide. So I could see with some hospitals that have large brands that are trying to build that brand out beyond that 5-mile radius, TikTok really makes sense for them. That said, I don't want to deter veterinary clinics that are really into video from making TikToks. If you have a team that's bought in on social and wants to make TikToks, they should do it. So, it really depends on your goals and your team. If you should join TikTok, say for a hospital. As far as for personal brands, yes, I think so. I think that there's a lot of growth potential there. You have to think about your client base or potential client base. Gen Zs have pets too. And so if your personal brand is trying to market yourself as, a specific veterinarian, not just for, Houston, but you're trying to be just that veterinarian that people go to for information, then yeah, you should get on TikTok. And if you're making that video content, then I also advocate that you are you're using that on Instagram for Reels. And I know that, Instagram and all their platform of products is a little different than TikTok. But to finish out your TikTok question, you had said the brands, personal brands, veterinary brands. I think I kind of tied that in a little bit with the initial thought there on TikTok. So yeah, if you're trying to build a veterinary brand, but if it's a large brand, then I would say yes for TikTok. And so then jumping over to Instagram. So Instagram, last month, I want to say it was, the head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, had said that, they're no longer just a photo sharing app. So I think that, especially with this, 1 year of Reels, it's really shown how much we can do with video, and that there's a lot of potential with Reels and video content on Instagram. The one thing that I think is kind of interesting with Instagram, and one of the reasons why I think that it's a place that, veterinary clinics should be, is you can target that, like I said, that 5 mile base. You can local target that on Instagram and in a very different way than you can on other platforms. So, with your location tagging, etc. So I think that if you're really trying to, if you're trying to build your clients up, for example, Instagram's your place that you should be. And Reels just helps with the discoverability. It adds another layer to things. As far as, say, personal brands, right now, one of the quickest ways to grow a following on Instagram is through Reels. Reels is one of the ways that you just can get so many new eyes on your content that you would never get, if you were just posting feed posts on Instagram, or that you would get on, say, Facebook, and that probably comparable to what you could get on TikTok.
That definitely makes sense. But then you get the targeting also, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's huge for me. For Instagram, the targeting is the big thing for me, and one of the reasons why I'm really advocating for Instagram.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense, and I think Instagram probably is in my opinion, the most, I think, important content platform for veterinary hospitals. And I guess I kind of think of Facebook as just a link. Like, okay, we're going to push our Instagram content over to our Facebook now.
Yeah.
And would you agree with that, or do you think that we should be having individual content for each platform?
I've lost a little faith in Instagram over the last 2 years or so. In that I used to put more stock into Facebook strategy and having a different strategy for Instagram, or from Instagram, and different content from Instagram. But it's so hard to get any kind of engagement on Facebook organically. You really have to be spending, on ads, etc., to get the views that you want. So I think that if hospitals have the bandwidth to be able to do different content and try a Facebook strategy still, or if they have clients that are largely on Facebook over other, over Instagram or other platforms, that they should put effort there. But I've moved largely to being okay with having that same content on Facebook and on Instagram. I have to say, one of the things that does bug me a little bit, just from being in social for a while, is seeing all the hashtags on Instagram, because I know how pointless they are. But I just really can't see spending all that extra time to try and make unique content for Facebook.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's really interesting from like an ad standpoint. So just running ads for practices and things. And also for other brands at scale, trying to get things to work on Facebook. Facebook has been just a mess. Their ad platform with iOS 14 has just really demolished any kind of tracking. If you don't have third-party tracking, you're losing 70% of your data now, is what I'm seeing from the accounts that we have third-party tracking with, which is like a really expensive tracking tools. And Facebook is not responding at all to advertisers and giving direction on what we should do or how to resolve the problem. And I just don't know what they're going to do. And Facebook and Instagram are linked together in the same boat. So it's just going to be really interesting to see. It seems like Facebook is probably being kept afloat primarily by Instagram. Have you heard at all about their influencer program that they've had in their marketplace? And I was wondering, I just thought of that as I was thinking about ad products and social stuff. Have you heard anything about that?
I've seen a little bit about it, but I really haven't looked into it very deeply. I don't really know of any brands at this point that would benefit from it. that I'm working with. So I just really haven't gone out to seek that information.
That makes sense. I was just curious because I'm just always curious to see what Facebook and Instagram are going to be doing to resolve this major problem they have. Just Google does not have these problems. And so for veterinary hospitals, it's like we're going to focus on getting the answer you want, like high-end clients, So that's like the difference between Google and Facebook when it comes to running ads for veterinary hospital. So I was just curious because I think they're going to have to come up with something else they're going to be in from a revenue standpoint, because advertisers are getting fed up with the issues that they're seeing here. So anyways, kind of strange, kind of interesting. And I guess to kind of wrap this up, is there anything that you really think that veterinary hospitals should be doing that they're not doing that is an easy and quick thing to do that you think is like, hey, everybody needs to be doing this? Or is there anything that you can think of that you really think that you'd want to see more veterinary hospitals doing?
I think that it's a super general, but I just want to see them showing up on social media. We know how great our hospitals are, but the outside world doesn't know how great they are. And I think that not showing up and sharing that information out, you're leaving out so many possibilities. I've mentioned it before in, potential new customers, new employees, new doctors, increased revenue. So I would just advocate for showing up to start off with. And if you're already there, then trying to expand your horizons, look at some video, start adding that in. Facebook just announced they're going to have Reels coming. So I think we're kind of behind the curve in social media compared to other, industries. So just show up and show up consistently.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even within the industry, the people that are showing up consistently are not the veterinary professionals. So the only voices that are getting heard at scale, for the most part, with the few exceptions, are people that are not given the same information out. That, the other side of the industry is the non-veterinary professional people out there. So, well, thank you so much for your time. Where's the best place for people to reach out to you if they're interested, and how can people follow you? Where's the best place for them to get more content from you?
Yeah, I'm on both Facebook and on Instagram at Sociable Pet. You can send me a message or DM me there if you want to chat.
Very cool. I saw you also have a newsletter sign up on your Instagram link tree, so that's great. So be sure to sign up for that. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Crystal. Thank you so much, and hope to talk to you again soon sometime.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I think that was full of really good information. Thank you so much, Crystal, for joining us. Again, go follow her on Instagram at The Sociable Pet is her handle. And again, if you have any questions, comments, or you need help with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next episode.